Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Nazir daf Yud. Yesterday, Iyun with Benzion, we came out with an interesting psak halacha, which seems to be the psak of the Rambam. We don't have any other Shulchan Aruch on Hilchos Nazirah, so usually when you don't have another Rishon to go with, you go with the Rambam, just like by Hilchos Lashon Hara. There's no one else who wrote a sefer in Lashon Hara, so we go with the Chafetz Chaim. Although I wish there would be a forum to argue on what the Chafetz Chaim says, especially what he says about Lashon Hara, saying something negative which is truthful. I believe that's not Lashon Hara. Um, as long as you're not exaggerating, or you're not saying it to hurt somebody, to mazik somebody. That's Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is you're mazik somebody. But when you're just discussing people, you're gossiping, you're chattering between yourselves. I don't think it's a problem to say something negative about somebody else, where it's not necessarily going to hurt that person either financially or emotionally, necessarily, right? It might not. It has to be a psik ratio. It has to be something that will definitely or usually. So here I want to talk about today. What we said yesterday is that according to Beis Hillel, who we paskin, like Harini Nazir min Agrogos min Advela, you're a Nazir from Grogos and Advela. Obviously, it's another concept of Naziros from figs. Figs are not relevant in Naziros, and we paskin Rabbi Yossi that we don't just give credence to the beginning of your statement. Harini Nazir, you take the whole statement into account. Harini Nazir from Grogos and Advela. We have to reconcile that. It doesn't work out to reconcile that. There's no such thing as Naziros from Grogos and Advela. However, we did say, according on that tab 10 of Beis, the Rambam Paskin, that you could have a neder, even according to Beis Hillel, you could have a neder. If you ask the guy, and said, what do you mean? I meant to say a neder from grows to veil, not a zeros, no, a zeros from grows to veil. A neder from grows to veil, that's what he meant. We asked the guy afterwards. Now, usually we don't ask people by Nadar, and that's further bolstered by the Gemara today. The Gemara today has a machlokes, Meishamai and Beis Hillel. Mishnah on Daf Yud talks about an interesting case where a person is very angry at his cow. I'm going according to the final explanation of Rava on Daf Yud and Beis. He's angry at his cow. The cow is not getting up, and he says, I'm going to take a Nazir for myself if this cow doesn't get up, right? So Beis Shammai says he's a Nazir. Beis Hillel is not a Nazir. What happened? The cow got up by itself, right? If he got to pick up the cow, he's not a Nazir, right? He realized the cow is a lazy cow. He's going to have to pick up the cow. He didn't want to be picking the Naziros. He's angry at the cow, right, that it's lying on the floor. But what happened? Lo and behold, it got up by itself. So are you a Nazir? You're not a Nazir. According to Beis Shammai says, I'm worried about this cow, right? I don't have to pick it up myself, right? So if it gets it by itself, I would take it to the by myself. The whole reason I'm saying this statement is because I'm thinking I have to pick it up myself. So whether it stays on the ground or it stands up by itself, I'm a Nazir because I didn't have to pick it up. According to Beis Hillel, no. Beis Hillel is just saying, it's a lazy cow. I'm a Nazir, right? But even because it's lying on the ground, right? And obviously he plans on picking it up, and it won't be a Nazir. But then it got up by itself. So that's his kavana. His kavana is really staying on the ground, right? So whether he picks it up or gets up by himself, he's not a Nazir, according to Beis Hillel, because that was he's worried about, being on the ground. That's what his main concern, being on the ground. According to Beis Shammai, his main concern is that he gets to pick it up, right? So the question is, I have over here, this is the machlokes of Shammai. So Shammai says, not a Nazir. Nazir, he is a Nazir. Beis Hillel says he is not a Nazir. The machlokes, the way we explain it, is depending on the person's intention. When he says, I'm a Nazir because, if this cow remains lying down, right? He doesn't want to become a Nazir. He plans on picking it up himself. But then, lo and behold, it got up by itself. Is he a Nazir or not a Nazir? So why don't we just ask the guy, right? Beis Shammai tell the machlokes what the person's intent was. I'm a Nazir because if this cow remains lying on the ground. What are you making in the Naziros like Beis Hillel, right? That I'm only Mekabel Naziros if it's on the ground, right? And if it got up by itself, I don't want a Naziros. Or did you hold like Beis Shammai that really, right? If it got up by itself, right? You also Mekabel Naziros. You just meant to say I don't have to pick on myself, but I got by myself. Then I would take the Naziros upon myself. So when you ask the guy what his kavanah is, obviously the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, we're using. It's not. I don't think it's a proof either way. It's a chazak. It's an assumption. The machlokes, what the assumption of people is. Now, I don't think you can take a poll and ask people what they're when this situation, what they meant when they take the Naziros when the cow is lying on the floor. It's a chazaka. Chazaka means something that's distinct from polling, asking people, because it could always change based on what country you live in, based on your culture, based on what generation you're in. So a chazaka is a way of understanding human uh, human feelings and human emotions. That's what a chazaka is. Beis Shammai will argue what the premise, the nature of a human being is, right? When God created man in his image, right? What is the regular thoughts of people, no matter what culture you're in, no matter what country you're in, no matter what race you're part of, no matter what generation you are? There's an assumption. It's machlokes, Beis Shammai will. What is the assumption? What are people? What is the nature of human beings? Is the nature of human beings that he meant to make the Nazir to God up himself, or he didn't make the Nazir to intend to make the Nazir to God up by itself? It's machlokes, Beis Shammai will. It's an assumption, whether it's chazaka, either way. Why don't we ask the guy? So the answer is that when it comes to Nazirus over here, or a Neder, right? This is a Nazirus, right? This is a Nazirus over here. So Nazirus is a type of a Neder. By Nazirus, I explained, Nazirus and Nadarim are different than Shulos, because Nazirus and Nadarim, the main part is the words you say, the Dibor, because you need Dibor, Akimas Sfasav, in order to be Mechal, an Isra Chefsa on the Chayfetz, or Nazirus on your body. So that's stronger, and that's in the words. That's in the words. So the words are primary. So if I have a chazaka, an assumption that he meant one thing, and he tells me something else, his intention doesn't override the chazaka. The only time his words matter is when there's a complete ambiguity, it's a complete suffix. That's what we had yesterday. We had yesterday when a person says, Haredi Nazir ben Agrogos and Advela, Rabbi Yossi said, according to Rabbi Yossi, this is a contradictory statement. On the one hand, he wants to be a Nazir. On the one hand, he says Grogos with Vela, which only applies to Nadarim, but doesn't apply to Nazirus. Half of the statement indicates Nazirus, half indicates Neder. Which one do we go with? So if you ask the guy, right, and he tells you, I wanted to make a Neder, we listen to him because it's a 50-50 suffix. 50-50 suffix, your words are not conclusive either way. Then we could ask you your opinion. What was your machshava? What was your thought? But if you have an assumption one way or the other, right, Beis Shammai assumes he meant one thing, Beis Hillel assumes he meant something else. Even if he goes ahead and tells me, no, I meant like the other way, right? Like Beis Shammai, according to Beis Hillel, he meant like Beis Shammai, right? That he'd become a Nazir, right? Even if it got up by itself. Or according to Beis Shammai, right? And he tells you, no, I really had in mind like Beis Hillel, that I didn't intend to become a Nazir if it gets up by itself. We disregard his thoughts. We disregard his machshavas because we have a 75% proof from his words. The chazaka is enough for Isurim over here, the Meichel and Neder. So therefore, we only use the person's machshava when it comes to 50-50 suffix. However, a shvua is different. A shvua is really the ikar, but a shvua is your thoughts, right? Because you're not making an Isra Chefs, you're making an Isra Gavra, which is just a Kabbalah on yourself, right? You're just affirming in your own mind. So therefore, by shvuas, I think it would help. If you go ahead and you tell me that I meant what is the opposite of the chazaka, it would have an effect either to render your shvua irrelevant, or maybe in some cases to take the shvua, even if the indication, the chazaka was that you're not taking the shvua. We'll have to explore that more in Masechah Shvuos. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.